In 3, 2, 1. Midnight hour has approached, Nightlings. Welcome to episode 19 of the Horror Headquarters. That is insane just to be saying 19. I can't believe I've gotten through 18 previous episodes of me talking about all things horror. That is astounding to me. That makes me feel very proud. And honestly, I am very happy with all of you guys that have been joining me on this journey. Whether it's 2 or 5 or 10 of you guys listening in right now, I don't care. Even if it's 1. I am so grateful for this journey. I'm so grateful for how far this podcast has already come. I can't believe we're already nearing 100 followers. That is insane. That is beyond insane. Hopefully I don't jinx it. But just a reminder that I'm very, 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 very grateful for all of you guys. Now, the new year is arriving. Christmas has passed. Christmas has passed. I was going to say Christmas the past, present, and future. But Christmas has passed. The New Year's is right around the corner. And we are entering in 2024 very strong. I have a very special thing to talk about with you guys. Not this episode, but on the next episode. And if plans continue to go the way that I'm expecting them to, it's going to be probably the best episode that I will be doing thus far. Obviously, each one is better than my last. That's what I always think. But obviously, there's some that really stand out. But it's going to be a very good one. So make sure to hit that follow button and make sure that you guys have rated us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. There really is just so much to come for this podcast. And I can't wait for you guys to see what's to come. And this one is going to be a very good episode. So don't worry, I'm going to stop the rant for now and we're going to dive right into this episode. And it's a true Christmas horror story. Let's go ahead and hit that rewind button to 15 years ago, to December 24th, 2008, where we meet a murderous Santa Claus. Bruce Pardo, a 45-year-old electrical engineer, was an everyday person, always volunteering, always kind to everyone, asking about other people's well-being, but one thing made that whole attitude and personality collapse. He had gone through a bitter divorce from his wife Sylvia and was struggling with the fallout of the separation. The couple had only been married for 1 year before they separated, and Sylvia filed for divorce in March 2008 as a result of irreconcilable differences. Now you'd think that would be the end of this whole debacle, but nope, it got worse. It got bloodier, and it got traumatizing for the entire community. Now I've done quite a bit of research on this specific case, and it's absolutely insane how calculated it all was, if that makes any sense. Like, he had been planning this for a while. I mean, obviously, being that his wife filed for divorce back in March, but the facts and the details that he incorporated into this whole thing were just mind-boggling to me, and I don't know how it was all done so secretly and unfortunately resulted in so many lives lost. Hence why this day, December 24th, 2008, in Covina, is called the Covina Massacre. Now, I'll go through the details a little bit later in this episode because I want to get to what happened. Now, on December 24th, 2008, he dressed up in a Santa Claus costume and carried a large present wrapped package to the home of his former in laws, the Ortegas, in Covina, California. They were having their annual Christmas Eve party, and he was aware of it, of course. But they've been having this with about 25 friends and family members. The surviving family and friends stated that they were playing a game of Texas Hold'em when they heard a knock at the door. An 8-year-old girl answered the door, and she was immediately shot in the face by Bruce. He then walked into the residence and opened fire on the 25 guests with a semi-automatic handgun. And this resulted in a bunch of people calling 911, people ducking behind the dining room table, people running upstairs, freaking out, all of them dialing 911. And I have listened to the calls because they are available on YouTube. They are horrific. The sounds are like gut wrenching. All the things that happened. It's just so horrible to hear. And it just makes you think about everything that everyone was going through, the thoughts going through their heads. The fact that a little 8-year-old girl was shot, yet she survived. She miraculously survived, and she's actually alive today still. But I'll get more into that later. Now, Bruce was carrying a package, and this package was a pressurized homemade device that sprayed race car flammable liquid throughout the first level of the home. And this ended up burning the house down, also burning people alive, and also injuring Bruce in the process. People were jumping out broken windows, they were jumping off of second floor windows, they were looking for any possible way to escape the house so that they wouldn't burn alive. And a lot of them ended up going to the neighbors' homes where they called for help. And witnesses later told police that they recognized Bruce Pardo as the shooter as he was doing everything. Now, as soon as the Los Angeles County firefighters and officers arrived at the scene, they parked at a cross street and worked their way down the street because they saw the house was engulfed in flames and it was far too dangerous to be right next to the house itself. There were neighbors that also said that the flames shot 50 to 70 feet up in the air and they heard explosions coming in from inside the house. That thought is just absolutely terrifying just to think about, and it's traumatizing, especially for those family members that went through that survived the entire thing. Now, investigators they initially found 3 bodies inside the rubble, and then 5 more bodies were recovered by the coroner Thursday afternoon, and then a 9th body was discovered Friday morning. So, being that the fire and the gunshots were happening at the same time, and being the horrible condition that the bodies were in, they said that they will have to use dental and medical x-rays to identify the people that were killed. Now you might be asking yourself what happened to Bruce Pardo. Did he die? Did he survive? Did he run away? He ended up killing himself with one of his guns at his brother's house with a shot to his head. But before he did this, police realized that he had a ticket to Canada and $17,000 on him. And this made them assume that he was attempting to flee, that he was going to do all this stuff and then run away. But the Santa Claus suit that he was wearing ended up burning onto his skin, giving him third-degree burns. So the police had assumed that he killed himself as a result of the injuries and not being able to completely get away with everything. Knowing that he was going to go to jail, he ended up killing himself. As a reminder, he did all of this stuff on Christmas Eve and then killed himself on the early hours of Christmas Day. So the next day he killed himself in his brother's residence. Now I want to get into the details of all the things he had planned and how this makes the case so much more complicated and horrifying at the same time. Bruce Pardo had apparently planned a detailed escape. He had rented multiple rental cars and parked one near the house of his ex-wife's divorce attorney, full of supplies and maps of the Southwest and Mexico, and the police speculated that the attorney might have also been a target of Pardo. He had also made plans to visit a friend in Iowa and had purchased a Christmas morning plane ticket from Los Angeles to Moline, Illinois. He was also carrying cash strapped to his body. But like I said, as a result of the explosion and fire, it left him with third-degree burns on his arms and legs. He changed out of the Santa suit and drove to his brother's house, where he was later found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His brother was not present at his home at the time of Pardo's death, but the rental car that was parked 1 block from his brother's house contained remnants of his Santa suit, booby traps, so that moving the suit would trigger a fire and set off 200 rounds of ammunition. And at his own house in Montrose, police had recovered 5 empty boxes for semi-automatic handguns, 2 shotguns, and a container for high-octane fuel tank gasoline. They also found what was described as a virtual bomb-making factory in his home. Like, all of this is insane. Like, he had planned this out forever. And the worst part of it, the craziest part, is that the Santa suit that he was wearing was made by a costume designer that he had known for a while. That's like the craziest part. And this costume designer ended up speaking out about this whole incident, explaining like how she had known him, all this kind of stuff, saying that he was a very kind, respectful gentleman, and she would have never assumed that he would use that suit to do all these crimes. Like, it's insane that he had planned it for this long. He kept his composure. He didn't get off any weird vibes throughout this whole process. And he did all this stuff and then ended up killing himself in the end. And it's just so scary because you don't know what was going through his mind to do all this stuff. Obviously, divorce is very traumatic. It's very upsetting, but going to these lengths, it's absolutely unacceptable, and it's just so mind-boggling to me. This is what gets me so into true crime stories and horror stories such as this one. Not because I'm getting like joy out of it, but because it's so like interesting to me. It's so weird and crazy and all over the place, and you're trying to pick apart the pieces, see what could have caused the slashing, that maybe there could have been something else going on, but we'll never know, being that he killed himself. It's just all these tiny little details that freak me out, that I'm just stunned by how he got away with all of this and no one noticed it. But this really does show you that you never know what someone's doing behind closed doors. You don't know what they're going through, what they're planning. Obviously, I'm not saying everyone's a serial killer and a murderer, but in these particular situations, like with this massacre, the Covina Massacre, he had planned this for such a long time, yet he was never caught and no one ever had suspicion of what he would do. Now, about that 8-year-old girl that was shot in the face by Bruce. Today, Katrina Yusupolsky is an advocate for the end of gun violence. After the Parkland shooting that took place on February 14, 2018, she was amongst dozens of students that walked out and advocated for all the lives lost and traumatized by the tragic events. She lives her life advocating for the end of gun violence and credits her own mother for her strength and voice. It's insane to me that she's taking all that trauma that happened to her at such a young age and is turning it into something good. And it reminds me of a quote by Carrie Fisher that goes like this: "Take your broken heart, make it into art." And that's exactly what she's doing. And it was very beautiful to learn, and honestly, so much respect to her, because to have the strength and power and voice and just the will to do all this after you've gone through such a traumatic time in your life at such a young age, it just shows how strong we can be when we're together and when we unite with each other and continue to fight for what's right. So I absolutely support her in her endeavors and what she's doing with her life, and it's just amazing, you know. I mean, I kind of want to say we ended this episode on a good note, because like I said, she took something horrible and she made it into something good. She's advocating for something that needs to be advocated for. Now, it comes at no surprise that this exact massacre was depicted in multiple film adaptations as well as in many TV episodes, one being the infamous Silent Night 2012, which is partially based on the massacre. Because in the film, a character tells the story of a man who donned a Santa suit and used a homemade flamethrower to attack a Christmas party being attended by his ex-wife. There was also a song called Black Christmas, which contains references to this exact massacre as well as all the other TV episodes that are titled Christmas Eve Massacre, But if you just search up Santa Claus Massacre or Santa Claus Murderer or Christmas Eve Massacre, anything along those lines, this massacre will come up. This is what got me into this subject, to do more research on it, figure out what happened, the causes, all that kind of stuff. Alright, now we move on to the poll results from the previous episode. The question was, what's your favorite Christmas movie? First place was tied, of course, we always have to have a tie, between The Grinch and Home Alone. Second place was Nightmare Before Christmas. Third place was also tied between Black Christmas and Silent Night. And then last place, which I want to say 0th place, was Krampus. That movie was horrible. I'm sorry, it just was. Now watch me change my mind if I rewatch it again, but I doubt it. But, maybe now that I'm older, I'll understand it more, or, I don't know, it'll be scarier and funnier. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. I don't know. But we also do have someone that dropped something in the Q&A that I want to read to you guys. It says, "You have great taste. Silent Night is great if you haven't watched it yet." I have not watched Silent Night yet, and I definitely do want to watch it now that this episode that I'm doing right now is depicted in Silent Night. Which, coincidence? I think not! But thank you to everyone that participated in the poll and in the Q&A. We have sadly now come to the end of episode 19 of the Horror Headquarters. I am getting a little bit of emotional right now because I am sad. I'm sad. It's like not like a permanent sad. I'm just sad right now because this will most likely be the last episode of this year. I mean, I'm being so dramatic. I'm a theater kid. I'm very dramatic. If you guys don't know that yet, but I am very, very, very dramatic. But I mean, I'm sad. I can't wait to keep doing more of this. But the fact that 2024 is literally right around the corner is insane to me. So this is 2023 Hassan Shamu logging out for now. But before I do, I just want to remind you guys that we are on Instagram at the Horror Headquarters and on Twitter at the Horror HQ. Make sure to throw us a follow. Make sure you rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Share this podcast all over your Instagram, all over your Twitter, all over Pinterest, wherever you guys have social media. Share it with your friends. When you see with each other on the holidays, tell them about this podcast. Tell them how much you love it, because this is the best podcast out there. There's also a Q&A and poll under this episode on Spotify. So sorry to everyone else on every other platform. I wish there was polls available, but just a reminder, Spotify is free to listen to. Literally all you need is an email and a password. That's it. And you don't even need a password. You can just log in with your email, and then later you have to set up a password to vote in the polls and participate. And you guys can send me voice messages though. That's on all platforms. There's a link in the description where you guys can send me a voice message, as well as links to all the social media platforms and our website, the Horror Headquarters website, where you guys can sign up for email subscriptions, which there will be something very special going out this weekend, because like I said, I have something very special planned. I can't say what it is. I don't want to give it away, but it's very special and near and dear to me, and I can't wait. Now, I am wearing my favorite shirt of all time that I love, the Horror Headquarters t-shirt. I'll be uploading a selfie on my stories on Instagram at the Horror Headquarters, so make sure to follow and check that out. But thank you guys so much for listening to me from August to December, from now until forever. Thank you so very much. I'm so excited for what's to come. And who knows, I might throw in a special episode before the end of the year. I don't know yet. I'm not going to make any promises. That's what I'm saying. I might. But this is Hassan Shamout logging off, so tread very lightly and pray for forgiveness. Midnight hour is approaching.